Welcome to Lotus Mind Flow. I'm Antoine. This is my Dharma path. In the last video, I left off with the prose section of the introduction to the Lotus Sutra, and I'm going to pick up reading. So I'll read and give you some comments. I'm 45 on this July 21st, 2025. I started reading the sutra when I was 17. So it's been about 25 years, 25, 26 years, maybe 27, something like that. Okay, so I'm working with the Burton Watson translation, and I'm on page 13 right here, picking up at that time Manjushri said to the Bodhisattva and Bodhisattva Maitreya and the other great men, good men, I suppose that the Buddha, the world-honored one, wishes to expound the great law, to rain down the rain of the great law, to blow the conch of the great law, to beat the drum of the great law, to elucidate the meaning of the great law. Good men, in the past have seen this auspicious portent among the Buddhas. They emitted a beam of light like this, and after that they expounded the great law. Therefore we should know that now, when the present Buddha manifests this light, he will do likewise. He wishes to call all living beings to hear and understand the law, which is difficult for all the world to believe. Therefore he has manifested this auspicious portent. Good men, once at a time, there was an immeasurable, boundless, inconceivable number of Ashmaka Kalpas in the past. There was a Buddha named Sun, Moon, Bright. Thus come one, worthy of offerings, the right and universal knowledge, perfect clarity and conduct, well gone, understanding the world unexcelled, worthy trainer of people, teacher of heavenly and human beings, Buddha, world-honored one who expounded the correct law. His exposition was good at the beginning, good in the middle, good at the end. The meaning was profound and far-reaching. The words were skillful and wondrous. It was pure and without alloy, complete, clean, and spotless, and bore the marks of the Brahma practice. For the sake of those to become voice hearers, he responded by expounding the law of the Four Noble Truths, so that they could transcend birth, old age, sickness, and death, and attain nirvana. For the sake of those seeking to become Pratyeka Buddhas, he responded by expounding the law of the 12-link chain of causation. For the sake of the Bodhisattvas, he responded by expounding the 6 paramitas, causing them to gain anuttara samaks and bodhi, and to acquire the wisdom that embraces all species. Then there was another Buddha who was also named Sun, Moon, Bright, and then another Buddha also named Sun, Moon, Bright. There were 20,000 Buddhas like this, with the same appellation, all named Sun, Moon, Bright, and all had the same surname, the surname Brahadvaya. Maitreya, you should understand that from the first Buddha to the last, all had the same appellation. All were named Sun, Moon, Bright. They were worthy of all the 10 epithets, and the law they expounded was good at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. The last Buddha, when he had not yet left family life, had 8 princely sons. The first was named having intention, the second good intention, the third immeasurable intention, the fourth jeweled intention, the fifth increased intention, the sixth cleanse of doubt intention, the seventh echoing intention, and the 8th law intention. Dignity and virtue came easily to them, and each presided over a four-continent realm. Okay, I'll stop reading there, and we'll go into understand some of the names, which are there for a reason.
Hey Antoine, what's the rating about?
Okay, in the introduction of the Lotus Sutra, explain why there are 20,000 Buddhas that have the same name, Sun, Moon, Bright, and what this symbolizes.
The 20,000 Buddhas named Sun, Moon, Bright in the Lotus Sutra symbolize the infinite and timeless nature of enlightenment. Their repeated name reflects the eternal recurrence of truth and the universal accessibility of Buddha's wisdom to all beings. They emphasize the unity and continuity of Buddhist teachings throughout time and space.
Okay, now the Buddha had 8 princely sons, and we listed their names, starting with, good intention and so forth. Could you explain the meaning of each name and collectively?
The 8 princely sons represent different virtues and qualities of enlightenment. Good intention symbolizes the resolve to seek enlightenment. The others, with names reflecting virtues like wisdom, clarity, and courage, collectively embody the diverse aspects of a Buddha's character, illustrating the comprehensive nature of enlightenment.
In spite of the fact there's no English equivalent, could you take Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi and explain it?
Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi refers to the supreme, perfect enlightenment attained by a Buddha. It's the ultimate state of awakening, free from ignorance and fully understanding the true nature of all things. Literally, it means unsurpassed, complete, perfect enlightenment.
Okay, good. Let's go on reading. There's an explanation of what we're
discussing.
Reading. Okay. When these princes heard that their father had left family life and had gained Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, they all cast aside their princely positions and followed him by leaving family life. Conceiving a desire for the great vehicle, they constantly carried out Brahma practices, and all became teachers of the law. They had already planted good roots in the company of 1,000, 10,000 Buddhas. At that time, the Buddha Sun, Moon, Bright preached the Great Vehicle Sutra entitled Immeasurable Meanings, a law to instruct the Bodhisattvas, one that is guarded and kept in mind by the Buddhas. When he had finished preaching the sutra, he sat cross-legged in the midst of the great assembly and entered into the samadhi of the place of immeasurable meanings, his body and mind never moving. A samadhi is a meditation, a deep-seated meditation. And throughout the sutra, the Buddha is either going into a samadhi or coming out of it. So he's either starting or finishing his meditation. And as he's going in and out of the samadhi, he's communicating with beings in other dimensions, or maybe even on other worlds. At this time, heaven rained down Mandarava flowers, great Mandarava flowers, Manjushri flowers, and great Manjushri flowers, scattering them over the Buddha and over the great assembly. And everywhere the Buddha world quaked and trembled in 6 different ways. At that time, the monks, nuns, laymen, laywomen, heavenly beings, dragons, yakshas, gandharvas, asuras, garudas, kimnaras, and mahoragas, the human and non-human beings in the assembly, as well as the petty kings and the will-turning sage kings, all those in this great assembly gained what they had never had before, and filled with joy, pressed their palms together and gazed at the Buddha with a single mind. They gazed. The gaze works 2 ways. You can receive information by looking or watching. You can also send. And when energy or information is sent through the gaze, it's also received. At that time, the thus come one emitted a ray of light from the tuft of white hair between his eyebrows, one of the characteristic features, lighting up 18,000 Buddha lands in the eastern direction. There was no place that the light did not penetrate, just as you have seen it light up these Buddha lands now. A Buddha land is a place where, or a pure land, where an enlightened being would go after they leave this realm, if they left this realm. So he's talking to these Buddhas in these other realms in the eastern direction. Maitreya, you should understand this. At that time in the assembly there were 20 million Bodhisattvas who were happy and eager to hear the law. When these Bodhisattvas saw this beam of light that illuminated the Buddha lands everywhere, they gained what they had never had before. They wished to know the causes and conditions that had occasioned this light. The causes, what did you do to make this light happen? At that time, there was a Bodhisattva named Wonderfully Bright who had 800 disciples. At this time, the Buddha Sun Moon Bright arose from his samadhi, and because of the Bodhisattva Wonderful Bright preached the great vehicle sutra called the Lotus of the Wonderful Law, a law to instruct Bodhisattvas, one that is guarded and kept in mind by the Buddhas. For 60 small kalpas, the Buddha remained in his seat without rising. A kalpa is a period of time that we cannot conceive of. Let's give you a definition.
Welcome back, Antoine. What's on your mind today?
Can you explain what a kalpa is, or an ashmaka kalpa?
An ashmaka kampa refers to a specific kind of meditative state in Buddhism, where the mind becomes as hard and firm as a rock. Ashmaka meaning rock, and kampa meaning state. It signifies a level of concentration where the mind is unshaken and intensely focused. It's a crucial step towards achieving deeper states of meditation and insight.
Okay, so we're talking about meditation, and can we say that that's time?
It sounds like you're talking about the time dedicated to meditation. It's indeed essential to allocate time for meditation practice, as
Okay.
it requires consistent
That's not what
effort
I'm
and
asking,
focus.
but okay, you get the point. That's the Ashmuka Kalpa. For 60 small kalpas, the Buddha remained in his seat without rising, and the listeners in the assembly at that time also remained seated there for 60 small kalpas, their bodies and minds never moving, and yet it seemed to them that they had been listening to the Buddha preach for no more than a space of a meal. So in this type of meditation, the time moves differently. They feel like they've been there in the time that it takes to eat a meal, but there's a longer period of time that they're perceiving. At this time in the assembly, there was not a single person who in body or mind had the least feeling of weariness. When the Buddha Sun Moon Bright had finished preaching this sutra over a period of 60 small kalpas, he spoke these words to the Brahmas, devils, Shramanas, and Brahmans, as well as to the heavenly and human beings and assurers in the assembly, saying, "Tonight at midnight the dusk come one will enter the nirvana of no remainder." So when you're talking to Brahmas, devils, Shramanas, and Brahmins, you're speaking to living beings or heavenly beings on all levels, both above and below you. At this time, there was a Bodhisattva named Virtue Storehouse. The Buddha Sun Moon Bright bestowed a prophecy on him, announcing to the monks, "This Bodhisattva Virtue Storehouse will be the next to become a Buddha. He will be called Pure Body Tathagata Arhat Samyak Sambuddha." After the Buddha had finished bestowing this prophecy, at midnight he entered the nirvana of no remainder. After the Buddha had passed away, Bodhisattva Wonderfully Bright upheld the Sutra of the Lotus of the Wonderful Law for a period of fully 80 small kalpas, expounding it for others. The 8 sons of the Buddha, Sun Moon Bright, all acknowledged Wonderfully Bright as their teacher. Wonderfully bright taught and converted them and aroused in them a firm determination to attain Anuttara Sambodhi. Those princely sons gave offerings to immeasurable hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, millions of Buddhas, and after that, all were able to achieve the Buddha way. The last to become a Buddha was named Burning Torch. Among the 800 disciples of Wonderfully Bright was one named Seeker of Fame. He was greedy for gain and support, and though he had read and recited numerous sutras, he could not understand them, but for the most part forgot them. Hence he was called Seeker of Fame, because this man had in addition planted various good roots. However, he was able to encounter immeasurable hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, millions of Buddhas to make offerings to them, revere, honor, and praise them. Maitreya, you should understand this. Bodhisattva wonderfully bright, who lived then, could he be unknown to you? He was no other than I myself, and Bodhisattva, seeker of fame, was you. Now, when I see this auspicious product, it is no different from what I saw before. Therefore, I suppose that now the thus come one is about to preach the great vehicle sutra called the Lotus of the Wonderful Law, a law to instruct the Bodhisattvas, one that is guarded and kept in mind by the Buddhas. So the instruction is in the mind of the Buddha. In order to get it, to receive it, it's necessary to make offerings to them. An offering to a Buddha could be something like flowers, incense, fruit, and so on. Samadhi, we're talking about meditation or deep-seated meditation and understanding concepts in a short period of time that will take a long period of time to actually comprehend. Maitreya, let's find out more about Maitreya. He might be a disciple.
Hey Antoine, what's new?
Could you explain who Maitreya is and why he's significant in the Lotus Sutra?
Maitreya is a future Buddha in Buddhist tradition, destined to appear on earth to bring enlightenment. In the Lotus Sutra, he's significant as a symbol of hope and future awakening, embodying the continuity of Buddha's teachings. His role emphasizes the eternal nature of enlightenment and the compassion central to Buddhism.
And tell us about Manjushri and his role in the sutra.
Manjushri is a bodhisattva representing wisdom. In the Lotus Sutra, he's a key figure who often engages in profound dialogues, guiding others toward enlightenment. His role underlines the importance of wisdom in understanding and applying the sutra's teachings. Manjushri embodies the clarity and insight necessary for spiritual awakening.
Now, I just finished reading the verse section of the introduction. I'm going to read the last prose. Could you explain the difference between verse and prose, please?
Absolutely. Verse is a form of writing with a rhythmic structure, often found in poetry, and usually follows a specific pattern or meter. Prose, on the other hand, is more like everyday speech, without a set rhythm or rhyme, and it's used in most forms of writing, like essays, stories, and articles. In Buddhist texts, you'll find both, with verses often used for poetic or doctrinal emphasis.
Okay, so I'm going to finish reading the introduction, the last prose section, but this time you've got an explanation of some of the terms, so it might make more sense. They say, some of them say that you need to meditate to understand the sutra. Okay. I recall at that time Manjushri, wishing in the presence of the great assembly to state his meaning, once more spoke in verse form, saying, I recall that in a past age, immeasurable, innumerable kalpas ago, there was a Buddha, most honored of men, named Sun Moon Bright. This world-honored one expounded the law, saving immeasurable living. beings and numberless millions of bodhisattvas, causing them to enter the Buddha wisdom. The 8 princely sons whom this Buddha sired before taking leave of family life, when they saw that the great sage had left his family, did likewise, carrying out Brahma practices. At that time, the Buddha preached the great vehicle, a sutra named Immeasurable Meanings, and in the midst of a great assembly, for the sake of the people, established broad distinctions. When the Buddha had finished preaching this sutra, he sat in the seat of the law, sitting cross-legged in the samadhi, called the place of immeasurable meanings. The heavens rained mandrava flowers, heavenly drums sounded of themselves, and the heavenly beings, dragons and spirits, made offerings to the most honored of men. All the Buddha lands immediately quaked and trembled greatly. The Buddha emitted a light from between his eyebrows, manifesting signs that are rarely seen. This light illuminated the eastern direction, 18,000 Buddha lands, showing how all the living beings there were recompensed in birth and death for their past deeds. That one could see how the Buddha lands adorned with numerous jewels, shone with hues of lapis lazuli and crystal, was due to the illumination of the Buddha's light. Lapis lazuli looks like there's some lapis. They're in the sutra. Amethyst is similar in its function. And, once one could also see the heavenly and human beings, dragons, spirits, many yakshas, Gandharvas, and Kimnaras, each making offerings to his respective Buddha. One could also see the dust-come ones naturally attaining the Buddha way, their bodies the color of golden mountains, upright and posing, very subtle and wonderful. It was as though in the midst of pure lapis lazuli there should appear statues of real gold. In the midst of the great assembly, the world-honored ones expounded the principles of the profound law. And one after another, the Buddha lands, the voice hearers, and countless multitudes through the illumination of the Buddha's light all became visible with their great assemblies. There were also monks residing in the midst of forests, exerting themselves and keeping the pure precepts as though they were guarding a bright jewel. One could also see bodhisattvas carrying out almsgiving, forbearance, and so forth. Their number like Ganges sands. Due to the illumination of the Buddha's light, one could also see bodhisattvas entering deep into meditation practices, their bodies and minds still and unmoving, in that manner seeking the unsurpassed way. One could also see bodhisattvas who knew the phenomenon are marked by tranquility and extinction, each in his respective land, preaching the law and seeking the Buddha way. At that time, 4 kinds of believers, seeing the Buddha, sun, moon, bright, manifest his great transcendental powers, all rejoiced in their hearts, and each one asked his neighbor what had caused these events. The one honored by heavenly and human beings just then arose from his samadhi and praised Bodhisattva, wonderfully bright, saying, "You are the eyes of the world, one whom all can take faith in and believe, able to honor and uphold the storehouse of the Dharma. The law that I preach, you alone now know how to testify to it. The world-honored one, having bestowed his praise, causing wonderfully bright to rejoice, preached the Lotus Sutra. For fully 60 small kalpas, he never rose from his seat, and the supreme and wonderful law he preached was accepted and upheld in its entirety by the Dharma teacher wonderfully bright. After the Buddha had preached the lotus, causing all the assembly to rejoice, on that very same day, he announced to the assembly of heavenly human beings, I have already expounded for you the meaning of the true entity of all phenomenon. Now when midnight comes, I will enter nirvana. What is nirvana? Is it the same as Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi or different? Let's ask the, Copilot. Let him tell you.
Take your time with that intro. I'm here when you're ready to chat again.
What is Nirvana and how is it different or the same from Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi?
Nirvana is the ultimate state of freedom from suffering and the cycle of rebirth in Buddhism, characterized by peace and liberation. Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, on the other hand, refers to the unsurpassed, complete, and perfect enlightenment achieved by Buddhas. While both relate to enlightenment, Nirvana is the state of liberation for all beings, and Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi is the ultimate enlightenment specific to Buddhas.
So you mean there are different levels of enlightenment, is that right?
Exactly. Nirvana represents a state of liberation available to all, while Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi is the peak of enlightenment realized by Buddhas. Both are profound, but they signify different aspects or levels of awakening within Buddhism.
Okay, so we're talking about awakening. If someone achieves enlightenment, are they still in the matrix or did they bust out of it?
Achieving enlightenment is like busting out of the matrix. It means realizing the true nature of reality, beyond illusions and ignorance. The enlightened person sees things as they truly are, free from the delusions that keep most people trapped in samsara, the cycle of birth and death.
How is a bodhisattva similar or different to a chosen one?
A bodhisattva and a chosen one are quite different. A bodhisattva is someone who has attained a high level of enlightenment, but chooses to remain in the world to help others reach enlightenment. It's a selfless path focused on compassion and aiding others. A chosen one usually refers to a figure in stories or religious contexts who is chosen or destined for a specific role or mission. Bodhisattvas choose their path out of compassion, while chosen ones are often marked by destiny or prophecy.
Very good. Let's turn him off and finish reading the...
Got it.
What is this? Verse, the verse form. We're reading the verse form. To understand better what a chosen one is, read Joseph Campbell's Hero of 1,000 Faces. That might help. Okay. We're in the introduction. There's just a little bit left. I'm going to finish. You must strive with all your hearts and remove yourself from indulgence and laxity. It is very difficult to encounter a Buddha. You meet one once in a million kalpas. When the children of the world-honored one heard the Buddha was to enter nirvana, each one was filled with sorrow and distress, wondering why the Buddha should so quickly seek extinction. The sage Lord, King of the law, comforted and reassured the countless multitude, saying, when I enter extinction, you must not be concerned or fearful. The Bodhisattva virtue storehouse has already fully understood in his mind the true entity that is without outflows. He will be next to become a Buddha, bearing the name Pure Body, and he too will save immeasurable multitudes. The night the Buddha entered extinction, as the fire dies out when the firewood is exhausted, they divided and apportioned his relics and built immeasurable numbers of towers. And the monks and nuns, whose number was like Ganges sands, redoubled their exertions, thereby seeking the unsurpassed way. The Dharma teacher, wonderfully bright, honored and upheld the Buddha's storehouse of the Dharma throughout 80 small kalpas, broadly propagating the Lotus Sutra. These 80 princely sons, who wonderfully bright converted, held firmly to the unsurpassed way, and were thus able to encounter innumerable Buddhas. And after they had made offerings to these Buddhas, they followed them in practicing the Great Way, and one after the other succeeded in becoming a Buddha, each in turn bestowing a prophecy on his successor. The last two, become a heavenly being among heavenly beings, was named Buddha Burning Torch. As leader and teacher of seers, he saved immeasurable multitudes. The Dharma teacher, wonderfully bright, at that time had a disciple whose mind was forever occupied with laziness and sloth, who was greedy for fame and profit. He sought fame and profit insatiably, often amusing himself among clansmen and those of other surnames. He threw away what he had studied and memorized, neglected and forgot it, failed to understand it. Because of this, he was named Seeker of Fame. Let's stop there and talk about the concept of seeking fame in the sutra and why. See, sutra means teaching, by the way. I didn't say that. Okay. What's his name?
Antoine, what's on your mind today?
Seeking of fame and profit, is that something that the sutra says is bad or good, and why or why not?
The Lotus Sutra emphasizes the importance of seeking enlightenment for the benefit of all beings, rather than pursuing fame and profit. The sutra teaches that attachment to worldly desires can lead to suffering, while true fulfillment comes from spiritual growth and helping others. So it leans towards viewing the pursuit of fame and profit as a distraction from the path to enlightenment.
Okay. Also, laziness and sloth is a distraction from the path, and greed. So all of these things that attach a human being to the world, take him or her off the path of enlightenment. Let's go on reading. But he had also carried out many good actions, and thus was able to meet with innumerable Buddhas. He made offerings to the Buddhas and followed them in practicing the Great Way, carrying out all the 6 paramitas. And now he has met the Lion of the Shakyas. Hereafter he will become a Buddha whose name will be Maitreya, who will save living beings extensively in numbers beyond calculation. The Shakya is the clan that Siddhartha Gautama, or the original Buddha, was born into. We see depictions of him in statues throughout Asia. Siddhartha, he was a prince of the Shakya clan. Let's go on. After the Buddha passed into extinction, that lazy and slothful one, he was you. And the Dharma teacher, wonderfully bright, that was the person who is now I myself. I saw the Buddha torch bright, sun moon bright, earlier manifested, and auspicious potent like this. And so I know that now this present Buddha is about to preach the Lotus Sutra. The signs now are like those of the early auspicious potent. This is an expedient means used by the Buddha. Now when the Buddha emits this beam of brightness, he is helping to reveal the meaning of the true entity of phenomena. Human beings now will come to know it. Let us press our palms together and wait with a single mind. That means we're one at mind, thinking about the same thing. The Buddha will rain down the rain of the law to fully satisfy all seekers of the way. You who seek the 3 vehicles, if you have doubts and regrets, the Buddha will resolve them for you, bringing them to an end so that nothing remains. That's the end of the introduction to the Lotus Sutra. In the next video, I'll be reading through chapter 2, which is expedient means. I'm Antoine. Welcome to my Dharma path. I hope you enjoyed the reading and the explanation of the reading for today. But remember to give me some thumbs up, and subscribe if you want to. Bye.